Welcome to UX Evolved. I'm Eric Ellis. Well, it's January 2026. Happy New Year. And I've spent the last few months talking to UX veterans who've navigated multiple technology disruptions. So today I'm not bringing you a guest, except for Teddy over here. Instead, I'm bringing you 3 predictions about what's going to happen to our profession in 2026. Not someday, not in the distant AI-powered future, but this year. These aren't comfortable predictions, but they're grounded in what I'm already seeing happen. Hiring freezes, team reorganizations, and how companies are talking about UX roles. So if you're a professional, UX professional trying to navigate this transition, these predictions matter because they're about the decisions you need to make now, not next year, now. So let's get into it. Okay, here's what's changed. So creating those visually polished portfolios, that work is no longer enough to stand out. I'm not saying that portfolios don't matter. What I'm saying is that portfolios need to demonstrate things that have fundamentally shifted. So your work still needs to look good. That's table stakes. But here's what's different. Anyone can now generate visually sophisticated mock-ups. I mean, Figma Make, ChatGPT, Midjourney, Galileo AI, Lovable. A product manager with basic design sense can prompt their way to a polished interface in a matter of minutes. So if visual or interactive execution is no longer the differentiator in our world, what is? In my conversation with Whitney Tolley, she put it bluntly.
And I think that's a skill set that we're going to start to see more of, that we need when we're hiring within design teams, is that ability to get to more of like the persona, the pains gains types questions, and not just, could you figure out how to use it? Like, we've got to get beyond that. We've got to get to the heart, because if we stick to just the surface level and usability aspects, those are the parts that are going to be easily replaced by AI. AI is already able to look at your design system and start to build out layouts and use your component library. So if we continue to see ourselves as just UI generators, then we'll find ourselves replaced.
According to a recent survey by the Nielsen Norman Group, 73% of hiring managers now say they prioritize demonstrated business impact over pure visual design skills when evaluating candidates. Now, that's a significant shift from just 3 years ago. So what does that mean for your portfolio? Well, your portfolio still needs to show your visual and interactive work, your process thinking, your craft, your aesthetic judgment, your attention to detail. But that's not enough anymore. You need to show 3 additional dimensions. The first is business impact and strategic thinking. Let's hear what Adam has to say about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back a little bit to that get good at business statement of not only knowing your customer, like actually really knowing your customer, knowing the in and out of the product, not like shirking that responsibility off to the tester or to the product manager, trying to fill in those gaps in your knowledge because it's going to make you understand the product better. But then also never being scared to really push on, hey, what are we trying to solve? Asking questions that'll really get to the root of the problem that you're trying to solve and staying focused on that thing. And then probably going a little bit faster maybe than we had to back in the day. Just pushing pixels around or designing for your resume, right? This idea of designing something for your peer group instead of designing something that's actually going to make a difference.
So when he joined me on the show, he talked about how designers need to get good at business and track their impact like product managers do. In other words, don't just show the redesign, show the problem that you were solving. Why did it matter to the business? And ultimately what happened after launch. Not, I redesigned the checkout flow with a cleaner interface. But I identified that 34% of users abandoned at payment, and through research, prototyping, and testing, I redesigned the flow, which increased conversion by 23%. And it generated in turn $4.2 million in additional annual revenue. Second, your decision-making process and judgment. Now, AI can generate variations, but what it can't do is navigate the complex trade-offs between user needs, business constraints, technical feasibility, and brand considerations. So your portfolio needs to show how you think through these decisions. Show the options you considered. Explain why you chose one direction over another. Demonstrate how you balanced competing priorities. Third, how you work with AI, with teams, and ultimately with ambiguity. Let's listen to Dan Zola.
That being said, I think the world still needs storytellers. And we still need to craft a story about using data. And that hasn't changed. Access to the data, ease of access to the data, ways we capture the data, that may have changed. But you still need to be able to tell a story. It's got to be clear and it's got to be compelling. And I haven't seen an AI that can do that yet.
So, as Dan was mentioning, the world needs storytellers, storytellers who can craft compelling narratives from data. Show me how you synthesized research, collaborated across functions, and ultimately drove alignment. If you used AI tools, show how. Not to prove you can use them, that's assumed, but to demonstrate your judgment in applying them effectively. Here's the uncomfortable truth about what's happening to UX compensation. The middle is disappearing. We're seeing the market split into two tiers, and there's not much room between them. Tier 1 is strategic UX leaders commanding 200 to 300,000 annually. These are people who can translate business goals into experience strategy. They lead cross-functional teams. They speak the language of executives. They're not designing interfaces. They're designing business outcomes. Okay, that's tier 1. Now, tier 2, I call them AI-Augmented executors. They're earning between 70 to 100,000. These are people who can efficiently operate AI tools to produce high-quality design work. They could do it at speed. They could do it at scale. They're valuable, but they're competing on execution. They're not competing on strategy. According to Glassdoor's latest UX salary data, we're seeing unprecedented compression in the 100 to 150 range. Those middle tier generalist positions, they're vanishing. Let's listen to Amit.
So I'm going to put a stat out there. It's not my own stat, it's from the MIT Business Review. And this was just in 2025. And they said that 95% of AI solutions fail. That's a huge number. That's like almost all of them fail.
Right.
And that's because so many enterprises just look at AI from the totally wrong perspective. They see the buzz around AI. They see the growth of all these sort of unicorns popping up and they think, okay, we have to be involved in AI. AI is this sort of big magic thing, but without really understanding what it can do and also what it can't do. Because AI isn't magic. It can only do a certain amount. It does hallucinate. If you're looking at the LLMs, for example, how many times have we asked a question and it says the answer so confidently that you believe it, but it's actually incorrect. And it's not just about when AI is good. So like I touched on earlier, we're reaching 95% forecast accuracy. It sounds great, but what is the cost of that 5% going wrong?
But here's what he didn't say explicitly. Companies are learning this the hard way, and they're realizing the need for strategic thinkers, those who understand both the technology and the business context. That's creating massive demand for senior strategic talent, but it's also commoditizing pure execution work. Here's what's driving the split. AI can now handle what we used to pay mid-level designers $120,000 annually to do. Generate variations, create design systems, produce high-fidelity prototypes. So companies are asking, well, why pay six figures for work that AI can augment down to junior-level oversight? Meanwhile, the strategic work, understanding marketing positioning, navigating organizational politics that are oftentimes complex, making judgment calls on complex trade-offs, that's becoming more valuable because AI can't do it. In my article, The Great UX Realignment, I wrote about how companies are realizing They need fewer designers, but more strategic thinkers. That's not a prediction anymore, it's happening. The evidence is in the job postings. I analyzed over 500 UX job listings from the last quarter. 63% of the senior roles, so 150,000 plus, now require demonstrable business strategy experience. But for roles under 100,000, the requirements are increasingly must be proficient with AI design tools. So here's the hard question you need to answer. Which tier are you falling in? If you're strategic, if you can articulate how UX decisions connect to revenue, retention, market differentiation, you're about to see your value go up. Companies will pay premium prices for people who can provide strategic direction to AI-augmented teams. But if you're primarily executing, if your value prop is, I make beautiful design, you either need to decide to move up or accept that you're competing in a commoditizing market. There's no judgment here. Both of them are legitimate choices. What you don't want to do is hang in the middle, dabble in the middle. That's really the danger zone. Miwako Zosel, who's early in her career, is already making this choice. She's learning SQL and Python, augmenting against her strategic user research skills, specifically to move toward the strategic tier, to be able to analyze data, provide insights, not just synthesize what AI gives her.
When I was between jobs, I was reflecting on what I love most about UX research. And one of the things that I really enjoy is distilling information from complex data. So I was looking at all these different job descriptions that are asking for SQL analysis skills, ability to look at quantitative data. It's kind of meshing data analyst and like product analyst and X research. The roles are evolving in that way where X research from when I started about 4 years ago is very different from what is expected of us today.
So make the choice in Q1 2026. Either invest heavily in the business strategy skills, go take that MBA course, get on a P&L review, learn to speak in OKRs, or lean into execution excellence with AI tools and accept perhaps what will be the compensation reality. That middle ground is starting to disappear, so you need to really think critically about the tier you want to be in. Now, for years, we've debated whether the 10x engineers are real, developers who are supposedly 10 times more productive than average. Well, in 2026, the 10x designer becomes very real, and it's going to fundamentally change team structures. And here's why. AI enables individual designers to have impact that previously required entire teams. Let's listen to Whitney.
I was just in a planning workshop where we had planned out activities for a 2-day workshop to collaborate on some strategic initiatives. And day one, we quickly realized that the output of day one's exercises was going to make day two's exercises that we had planned not relevant or maybe a waste of time. And back in the old days, I don't want to say old days, 2 years ago days before AI, we would have just stuck with it. We would have just said like, no, this is what we planned and we just got to trust the process and just hope that we can get to great results over this. But I was in the middle of this workshop and chatting with Gemini AI about the types of information that we were seeing come out of the workshop so far and brainstorming on like what type of activities could we do tomorrow. We have 6 hours. How would you do exercises over 6 hours? And going back and forth with it. So over a 30-minute period of time, we had a completely new agenda for the next day. And so that was inspiring confidence of like, we can walk into day two and we can get better outcomes from that than say 2 years ago, where we would have just said, we've just got to stick to what we planned and hope that it will work out.
So here's what this means for team structures. Companies are realizing they can run lean UX teams of highly capable individuals rather than large teams of specialists. Instead of 10 designers, they want 2 to 3 exceptional people who can leverage AI to do what 10 used to do. Let's listen to Amit.
Yeah, when I'm beginning my own startup, Hotel Cloud, I just embedded myself in the hotel for a good period of about a year. And I was sitting there next to the revenue managers, the marketing managers, the sales managers. and just really getting to grips, firstly with the domain, because I came from a different experience. I had some experience through my time at EasyJet of the travel space, but hotels in particular were quite new to me. So there was a lot to learn. Obviously, I had a lot of other experiences that I wanted to bring in, but first and foremost is understanding who you're building for and what are the problems they face. And that's where I got most of my education in terms of this industry and the tinkering and the prototyping.
He embedded himself in a hotel for a year to understand the business. That kind of deep expertise combined with AI execution capability creates disproportionate value. The data backs this up. According to a Gartner report from Q4, companies using AI-augmented design teams are operating with 40 to 60% smaller teams while maintaining or improving output quality. But here's the part people aren't talking about. This isn't just about AI tools making individuals faster. It's about the nature of the work changing. As I wrote in From Benchmarking to Orchestration, UX is shifting from execution to coordination. The value isn't in making the screens. AI can help with that. The value is in orchestrating the AI tools, the stakeholders, the business requirements, the technical constraints, and the user needs into coherent solutions. Someone who can do that orchestration effectively is worth 10 people who just execute. What companies are actually valuing now is not, can you design a checkout flow, but can you understand our business model, analyze our conversion data, prototype solutions with AI, test with users, drive implementation across engineering, product, and marketing. That's a different job, and it requires a unique person. Here's what's happening to teams in 2026. Flat structures, high autonomy, small headcount, big impact. Companies are moving away from large UX departments with layers of management. They're building small teams of exceptional practitioners who can leverage AI to amplify their impact. So, what's the action item? Prove you can drive outsized impact now. Take a significant problem at your company, own it end to end. Use whatever AI tools make sense and show results. Document everything. Build the case study that shows you can be a force multiplier, because teams are shrinking and they're only keeping the people who can deliver 10x impact. Okay, 3 predictions, 3 somewhat uncomfortable realities. The question is, can you prove your strategic value in a world where execution is commoditized? 2026 is the year you answer that question. Not with words, with results. I'm Eric Ellis, and this is UX Evolved. If this resonated with you, subscribe for more conversations about how our profession is adapting and thriving through the AI transition. Until next time.